After dealing with mysterious enemies and finding out new secrets about her Luna, Reese commands his pack not to mention anything to the elders or other pack members until the right time arrives. Reese then plans to make amends with Trinity and takes her out on a date night. Will Reese finally accept his feelings for her? Will they have the much-needed date? Will Trinity be attacked at the date? How will Reese tell Trinity about the danger that looms?
A great dinner and a beautiful restaurant was exactly what they needed. He could charm her the way he hadn't before. This would be different from their breakfasts at home. This would be their first date. He heard Trinity's heart quicken beside him. Was she nervous too? Breathe, little bunny. Trinity admired the restaurant on the way to their table. She looked impressed until she noticed the patrons glaring at them from the lobby. Ignore them, they're just hungry, Reese said while pulling out Trinity's chair. A waiter approached with wine, so Reese had a moment to restart. He said, I'm sure I could handle whatever came our way, but goddess forbid. If something happened, I needed our pack by our side. Right, she started sarcastically, because alphas are so good at asking for help. You laugh, but I'm alpha for a reason. Yeah, because your dad was an alpha. It's not just that. If the air isn't strong enough, we admit that, and give it to whoever is strong enough to support us. I earned my title. Trinity looked at him differently then. She sized him up. I didn't know that, she admitted. I trained my whole life to take care of this pack. The only reason that rogue hurt you on the mountain is because he had such a head start on me. I only needed 10 more seconds to stop him, but I didn't have that time. He glared into his wine glass. He'd never wanted to tell her how he failed her. He would never let it happen again. Her voice softened. Is that why you didn't visit me in recovery? You blamed yourself? I know you blamed me, but I never blamed you, he said. What? Your hike was a great idea. You didn't know that the rogues would get that far into our territory, and you saved that boy's life. If you'd had a bit more time, you would have been in the clear too. Trinity shook her head. Why are you saying all this? What do you want from me? Nothing, he answered, though that was a lie. More than anything, he wanted her forgiveness. He wanted to take back the months he'd wasted that wedged between them. A waiter dropped off their soup, but Trinity refused to grab her spoon. You can't be awful one day and kind the next, she told him. When's the last time I was awful? He cringed. Don't answer that. I acted badly before. I thought you'd do what everyone else does, but you're not like everyone else. That's why I saved you. It's easier to save me than find a new mate, she said. His temper flared. Why was she being so difficult? We only get one mate, he told her. Has anyone ever tried finding a second one? He huffed. No, that's not how wolves are. Good thing I'm not a wolf then, she said, finally reaching for her soup spoon. His growl shook their wine glasses. You wouldn't dare. But you would. You only want me when it's convenient for you. How long until you get bored and reject me again? How long until you do the same? He snapped. You act like I'm the only one resisting, but you've run away and complained. You kicked me out of your room. Because you rejected me. I ran to get space to process this, and you refused. I was terrified, but I still got dressed for you. I tried to connect with you. And what did you do? You rejected me again. How can I trust you after all that? His cheeks burned with shame. He hadn't expected to really hurt her. He thought she could never love him without a wolf. He thought he was protecting everyone. His heart sank. His wolf whimpered. A new tension took its place. a simmering heat that flared with every giggle and flutter of her eyelashes. His wolf was firmly at attention as he led Trinity to the car with a hand on her back. The heat between them warped time. The drive home felt too quick and endless at the same time. He needed to touch her. He needed this to be more than one night of peace. He led her to the house elevator. Neither of them pressed a floor button. His fingers danced on her hip, and she shivered into the touch. He had to ask, "Do you feel it too?" "Feel what?" she asked, but she sounded as breathless as he felt. He used his grip on her to spin her to him. She gasped. Her eyes were wide but dark with the same hunger that coursed through him. He leaned down, letting his nose guide him, inhaling her cheeks and neck. "What are you doing?" she asked. He practically purred, contemplating a second dessert. "Don't touch me!" She pushed past him to jam the button on her floor. I knew what this was. I still fell for it. What is wrong with me? Trinity rushed off the elevator without waiting for him. Reese wanted to run after her. Really, he did, but convincing her was already impossible. And running in his current state would have been extremely uncomfortable. He readjusted himself as the doors closed. Tomorrow, I'll deal with her meltdown. Tonight, I'll take the coldest shower known to man. Reese spent yet another cold shower wondering how to fix things with Trinity. He tried the simple restaurant and the grand romantic gesture, complete with a moonlight picnic. He tried sincere compliments and gifts that acknowledged their shared history. What else could he do? He considered asking his mom, but she was asleep by the time Reese felt ready to talk. By morning, it was too late. His mom was mid-conversation with Trinity at the breakfast table. Reese listened as he entered the kitchen. "You're doing great with them," Lila told Trinity. "We used to have a Phi who did most of the caretaking." "A Phi?" Trinity repeated, confused. Reese spoke up while pulling out his chair. A Phi is a babysitter for the pack, a caretaker who helps the mothers with their cubs. Our last one passed away, and no one else stepped up to take their place. Exactly. Lila leaned over to kiss Reese on the cheek. "Morning, Reese." "Good morning, Mom." He grinned across the table to Trinity. "Good morning." She nodded and mumbled, "Good morning." Lila sighed. "Don't tell me you two are fighting again." "We're not," Reese said. "She's just... I don't know what she is." "I'm fine," Trinity insisted. "Just getting used to some whiplash." "Funny you mention that. My neck's been hurting me a lot lately." She feigned a worried expression. "Have you tried a cold shower?" "I've had plenty," he growled. His mother watched them with wide eyes. "You two want the room, or can we finish talking about how the moms are struggling?" Trinity quickly turned back to Lila. "Sorry, right. I can't believe they've been on their own this long. Until we find another Phi, maybe we should have a packed daycare. It doesn't have to be every day, but a couple of days a week will give the mothers plenty of time to do stuff kid-free." Lila clapped her hands excitedly. "So thoughtful, don't you think, Reese?" He thought it would turn his house into a jungle gym. Trinity would volunteer one of their great halls in no time. How had he gone from no one in his house to a daycare in a few short months? He answered as neutrally as he could. "I think it would be a very popular idea among the pack women." Trinity's face fell. "So you don't like the idea?" "I never said that," he backpedaled. "It's necessary, especially if the mothers are struggling." Lila clicked her tongue at him. "Then you should have said you liked it the first time." It doesn't matter if I like it. The Luna looks after the women and children, and I never said it was a bad idea. He didn't understand why he was getting reprimanded for a non-answer. Lila told him, "But you didn't say it was a good idea either. People can't read your mind, Reese." "Here, here," Trinity said. She hoisted her orange juice in the air for a toast. It felt mortifying to explain himself to Trinity. She acted as if everything he did was an act. Reese tried again. "It's not just a physical thing. I can prove it. Tomorrow on New Year's Eve, I'll be a good boy and keep my hands to myself the whole night." For a moment, she considered it. He watched a thought flash across her face, but she stuffed it down. "I'm fine with anything. Now, if you'll excuse me, I want to practice my new violin." She finished her orange juice and left him behind. He had to remind himself to be grateful. She was giving him another chance. He wouldn't let it go to waste. Reese knocked at 9 o'clock sharp the next night. Trinity opened the door, all ready to go. Trinity smiled sweetly at him. He led the way over to the library. Trinity looked confused as he opened the door. He knew how much she loved the library, so he'd made it even more romantic. A candlelit table for two, far away from the books, with a roaring fire as well. The pièce de résistance was a takeout on the table. Trinity could smell it before Reese could even bring it up. "Lucky Panda's garden?" Trinity beamed. "Oh, goddess, I haven't had this in months." She rushed to the table. Reese sped up to catch up with her. He managed to pull out her chair, but she wasn't trying to sit. She was too busy opening the containers. Chop suey, wonton soup, Chinese rib tips. Who told you? Reese grinned. "Noah, I want to get to know you. That starts with some of your favorite foods." Her eyes sparkled. "You could ask me, you know. It doesn't always have to be a surprise." He hummed. "I asked you about tonight's meal, and you didn't answer," he reminded her. She nodded. "You haven't always listened to what I said." "I'm listening now," he promised. Her eyes still looked doubtful, so he did what he'd been avoiding his last few attempts. "I'm sorry, little bunny, for what I said and how I treated you. I never should have rejected you or let my own confusion and doubts overpower our bond. That's why I want to start over. I want to do this right." "Your doubts?" she repeated. "About me?" "About everything," he admitted. "I'd never felt anything this strong. I had no guide and only bad experiences leading up to this. I called you weak, but you were tougher than I was to try so hard back then. Let me try now." Her face lit up as she launched into a story about their takeout selection. She started opening up to him. He returned the favor, sharing stories and answering her questions to get to know him too. There were no assumptions about what they knew already. This was new territory, and they couldn't wait to explore. Trinity was giddy for days after her New Year's date with Reese. She replayed the kiss that they shared at midnight over and over in her head. It was quick, though not entirely innocent. All Reese did was press his lips to hers gently, and oh so briefly. But she felt like her entire body was on fire. And she knew he felt the same. She saw the same passionate fire in his eyes when he said goodnight. He wanted me. Trinity blushed. She wanted him too, more than anything. But there were a few questions that Trinity needed answers to before she could give in. Did he still hate her? Would he reject her? Would he ever love her? After all the excitement of the previous few days, Trinity slept in and had a late breakfast by herself. Her classes wouldn't start for another week, and she wasn't expecting her schedule to be too demanding since she'd be taking them remotely. So she made her way to Lila's room to ask for some advice on the packed daycare that she wanted to launch. "Come in," Lila called when Trinity knocked. "So, the Sleeping Beauty emerges," Lila joked. "I was worried you wouldn't wake for another 7 years." "I'm sorry," Trinity laughed. "I must have really needed the sleep."
Trinity's heart flutters with a mixture of excitement and apprehension. Reese has finally apologized and seems genuinely interested in rebuilding their relationship. But can she trust him? Will he truly change, or will he revert back to his old, distant self? And what about her lingering doubts and fears? Can she overcome them and finally open herself up to the love she craves? Will their budding romance survive the challenges of pack life, family expectations, and the lingering shadows of the past? Want to know what happens next? Click on the link in the description below to watch further episodes of Chosen by Fate, Rejected by the Alpha.